So we're here to listen to Peniel Joseph. I had the pleasure of interviewing Peniel on C-SPAN on the occasion of his 2010 book, Dark Days, Bright Nights, From Black Power to Barack Obama. And it was one of those wonderful, unhurried C-SPAN book conversations. And I had never met him before, and I was so impressed not only by his intellect, but by his ease, his humility, and his introspection. I left thinking, man, I'm going to read all of that dude's books from here on until the end of time, whatever he writes. He also is author of the award-winning Waiting Till the Midnight Hour, A Narrative History of Black Power in America. But the book he has come to discuss today, and why I'm sure you're all here, is Stokely, A Life, which William Jelani Cobb described in a New York Times review as an insightful, highly engaging, and fluently written biography of Stokely Carmichael, the man widely seen as heir apparent in the black leadership hierarchy to Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X following their assassinations. Like his peers at the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, Stokely started out as a believer in nonviolence, but his own experience and the violent encounters of others led him to concentrate his thinking on the notion of black self-defense. Carmichael was a complex figure, and that complexity is captured wonderfully in this definitive biography, Stokely, A Life. I mean, you can never be disappointed with a book when you have chapter titles like The Chocolate Fred Astaire. Peniel Joseph is an historian, activist, and professor at Tufts University, and a popular radio and television commentator on subjects such as race relations and civil rights, politics, democracy, and I must say he's got a really nice shoe collection. Please give a warm welcome to Peniel Joseph.
Hey, thank you, Kevin, for that warm introduction. I'll start by thanking the Library of Congress and the National Book Festival for this invitation to talk about Stokely, A Life. It's really an honor and a privilege to be here. I spent 10 years on the life of Stokely Carmichael Kwame Ture, and a lot of the questions that I've received was why? Why did I spend so much time? Why was Stokely Carmichael Kwame Ture so interesting to me? And why did he deserve a biography? Why did he deserve this attention? And to really answer that, and before going into Stokely Carmichael's life, the legacy that he left and what it means to us in 2014, especially in the context of contemporary American race relations, the age of Obama, the age of Ferguson, where we are now. I have to begin with my mother. My mother, who's watching this right now, Peniel Joseph, is 75 years old. She's retired, Haitian immigrant who came to the United States in the mid-1960s and really was my first history teacher. My mother was part of the 1199 SEIU union. I was on my first picket line in elementary school. She taught me values that were really, really important to shaping who I am, both as a man, as a person, a human being, but also as a writer, scholar, and thinker. And it's within that context of growing up in Jamaica, Queens, New York, and listening to speeches by Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., but also finding out about Haitian history, reading C.L.R. James, The Black Jacobins, reading about all these different people who struggled for social political justice, that I came to find Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael. And I was really, really impressed by Stokely Carmichael, even as an elementary school age child. I didn't know I was going to be his biographer at the time. When I think about Stokely Carmichael, The first time I encountered Stokely was through the miniseries Eyes on the Prize. And that miniseries, extraordinary, Henry Hampton and Callie Crossley and all these people at Blackside who created really the definitive documentary about the heroic period of the civil rights movement, and they did it in 6 parts, and in 8 parts, and then in 6 parts. The young 24-year-old Stokely Carmichael is in one of those episodes, and he's calling for black power. And if you were in New York City growing up in the 1980s, in the context of everything from Spike Lee to Howard Beach to different roiling demonstrations against police brutality, that documentary was a very, very signal moment in my own political history and my own intellectual development. So I encountered Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael, by way of the miniseries Eyes on the Prize. And in subsequent years, as I went to college, as I became a thinker, a reader, writer, activist, he always stayed on my mind. The first book I wrote, Waiting Till the Midnight Hour, was a history of the Black Power movement, both in America and internationally. And it was in the course of doing research on that book that I really came to deeply, deeply investigate and research the life of Stokely Carmichael Kwame Ture. So that's by way of introduction. Stokely, A Life. This is a biography of a political activist who I argue in this book stands out as one of the 3 political activists in the post-war period who transforms race, democracy, civil rights, community organizing, citizenship. And that's Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., and Stokely Carmichael Kwame Ture. Stokely was born June 29th, 1941 in Port of Spain, Trinidad. He comes to the United States 2 weeks before his 11th birthday in 1952. He moves to the Morris Park section of the Bronx. His family is one of the only black families in that neighborhood. He's a precocious, very, very intelligent child, always identifying with underdogs, has a wide array of friends, interracial friends, hugely charismatic. He becomes one of the only black students to test into the Bronx High School of Science, which is one of the best public high schools in New York City. And he becomes one of the most popular, if not the most popular, student at Bronx Science. And what's extraordinary is that Stokely Carmichael attends Bronx Science from 1956 to 1960, and it's really during some of the key years of the heroic period of the civil rights movement between 1954 and 1965. And in high school, he becomes an organizer. In high school, he's going to be mentored by Bayard Rustin, who's the key social democratic political activist, openly gay, one of the most brilliant minds of the civil rights movement. He sees Rustin as a teenager, and he asks a friend, who is that speaking up there? And somebody replies to him that that's Bayard Rustin, the socialist. And Stokely says, that's who I'm going to be when I grow up. And when we think about Bronx Science, it's very, very important because at Bronx Science and during his high school years, Stokely Carmichael is going to imbibe multiple political and intellectual traditions. Some are going to be Jewish American and a Jewish American vibrant left that's Marxist, that's socialist, that's radically democratic. Some are going to be black and global and Pan-African. He's got relatives in Harlem, and he's going and listening to street speakers in Harlem. He is listening to Pan-Africanist speeches in Harlem. He finds out about Kwame Nkrumah, the leader of Ghana. He finds out about Sekou Touré, the leader of Guinea. He finds out about Patrice Lumumba of the Congo. So even in high school, Stokely is taking these different traditions in. When we think about this heroic period of the civil rights movement, just a really short, truncated history lesson. Between May 17, 1954 and August 6, 1965, we have one of the most extraordinary periods in American history. And when we think about that period in American history, May 17, 1954 is the Brown Supreme Court desegregation decision. 1955-56 is the 13-month Montgomery bus boycott. On August 28, 1955,